And welcome back to another edition of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. We are your hosts. He's the Stallion. I am the Enforcer. And we're sitting here like two schmucks, like we usually do, just figuring out what we want to talk about this week in the world of professional wrestling. Joe, there's been a lot of news and notes, and I don't know if you know this, but we're on the fast lane, digging around the roadblocks on the road to WrestleMania. The show, it's a 2-night banger, which means it's probably going to be about 10 hours, right, of wrestling over 2 nights. And I think we know like 4 or 5 matches for the show so far, but the show is coming together. Did you enjoy the fast block the other night?
I didn't hate Fastlane, to be honest with you. I thought there were a couple of good matches, a couple of decent matches, and 1 or 2 that were not very good. But I thought, as a whole, if you look at the main event matches, Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus in a no-holds-barred match, and Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan for the Universal title with Edge as the special enforcer, those 2 matches delivered, in my opinion. So I thought those, if you just look at it in terms of that, I thought that was pretty good. So, I mean, overall, it was probably an average show, but some good matches on there. So I can't really complain too much about it.
The special what for the main event?
He was the special enforcer on the outside of the ring for the Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan match.
Special enforcer. I dropped that fucker. Special enforcer in my ass. No, I thought it was an okay show. The main event, Daniel Bryan, he's just so good, man. He's the BITW, if you will. He's just the best. Roman, he's cool. It's fine. But the rest of the show, Sheamus and Drew, I really feel like he should have saved that. I kind of wish that was a WrestleMania match. It was like they had like 3 matches in 2 weeks, and they were such great matches, but they really went to the well with it a little too early. I think you kind of could have spaced that out, but we do have our card now for WrestleMania taking shape. I mean, in your recent memory, has there been more questions about a WrestleMania card like ever? I don't feel that. Like, I feel like they didn't. The reports were up until like 2 weeks ago. They didn't even have a main event, right? It's crazy.
There were some talks about that. I don't know, man. I have to think that. I mean, if you look at the way that it played out, just take a look at the Raw side for right now, right? They clearly had an idea, I guess, about a month ago, to put the title on Bobby Lashley, and then have Drew be the guy that challenges him at WrestleMania for that championship, right? They pulled that whole move. Now, I don't know when they decided that, if it was last minute, but they, of course, did the whole Miz cashed in the briefcase. Lashley beat him a week later, and now Lashley's facing Drew at WrestleMania. So I think they probably had that in mind, maybe sometime in February, at least, to go with that as a plan. When you look at the SmackDown side, I think they had Edge and Roman Reigns penciled in since the Rumble, basically due to Edge's Rumble win back in January. They were leading towards that. I don't know that, or at what point they decided to include Daniel Bryan in that match as a triple threat, as he's not even officially in the match yet. I think that's what people are all speculating that's going to happen. So I think those matches probably have been set stone. We can get into some of the details, but Randy Orton and The Fiend, I think, has been building for several months, where they're leading to a match between those two at WrestleMania. I don't know if they're going to put a stipulation on that, make it skinematic. That's what they call it, right? Skinematic.
Or no, that's the cheap porn on Cinemax, I think.
So again, there's 6 matches that are there. So those 2 title matches, I think Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, I think they figured that out again at the Rumble. They probably had that in mind. So I think when you look at those things, they had some matches in mind, and some other ones I think have probably been cobbled together. The Raw Women's Championship is an interesting case. Right now, it's Asuka versus Rhea Ripley. I think that the original plan was supposed to be Lacey Evans defending the title against Charlotte, but Lacey Evans got pregnant, so that storyline ended. Charlotte Flair has been diagnosed with COVID and also has some stuff going on behind the scenes with Andrade, her boyfriend or fiance, being requesting his release. So that match is now Asuka and Rhea Ripley. So I think that's probably been something that's changed. And I think everything else are kind of putting together. The Bad Bunny involvement, I know that's your favorite part of every show, is Bad Bunny versus The Miz is going to be taking place at WrestleMania. And the one thing I don't see on here that I believe
Damian Priest can't even get the fucking rub, Joe. I thought the whole thing, everybody was like, "Oh, this is great. Bad Bunny's giving Damian Priest the rub for WrestleMania." Like, he's not even a fucking match. And The Miz can't carry a tune, let alone carry a Bad Bunny. Miz is a good performer, but he's not of the capability of guys needed to carry a guy who's not a professional wrestler.
Yeah, I thought they were going to do a tag match there for that, and maybe they still will. I don't know. But right now, it's Bad Bunny with Damian Priest in his corner versus The Miz with John Morrison in his corner. And there's a couple matches that aren't listed officially on Wikipedia, probably just because they haven't been made official by WWE President Jack Tunney. It is
Monster Pop.
AJ Styles and Omos, excuse me. AJ Styles and Omos versus the New Day for the Raw Tag Team titles. Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon look to be having a match at WrestleMania. I know that Shane accepted Braun's challenge, and I'm relatively yes after he was I think it was post Green Slime. Yeah, after he was on Nickelodeon.
You can't do that on you can't you can't say that on television?
You can't do that on television. Yeah. So I think there's that, and it seems like we're going to get Seth Rollins and Cesaro at WrestleMania, I believe. So there's a few more that are coming. If you add those, that's about 9 matches that we can feel relatively confident in. I assume Big E is going to be doing something. I assume that the SmackDown tag titles will be on the line in some capacity. Maybe they'll throw a random ladder match in there somewhere, as they like to do. So I think it's getting there. There have had to be some changes, though, and I think they probably didn't really settle on a direction until maybe January or February for a lot of these things.
You want me to start with what sucks or what I like?
I mean, you seem like you're not happy right now. So why don't you start with the things that suck, and we can talk about that for a few minutes.
Okay. A couple of things that suck. The Royal Rumble is the biggest pay-per-view of the year, right? Like, well, aside from Mania, it's the biggest spectacle of the year, the most prestige behind it, because the winner of the Royal Rumble gets a title shot, male and female, right?
I think it's fair to say that the Rumble is probably the second biggest show of the year, and then SummerSlam after that.
Sure. And the reason why the Rumble is so important is because the winner gets a title shot at WrestleMania. Sick. Rhea Ripley in the Royal Rumble, loses the Royal Rumble, shows up out of nowhere on a Monday night, looks at Asuka, challenges Asuka, points to the fucking WrestleMania logo. We have a Royal Rumble. We have a WrestleMania match. Dude, this fucking sucks. I'm just, like, you can't. I hate this. You're telling me you have 100,000 writers, 100 of them, and nobody could put together a story that makes a little bit of sense. Yes, Rhea Ripley signing is a big deal. Sure. Did she sign? Did she join Monday Night Raw because Charlotte's gone with quote unquote COVID? Maybe, but you can't at least put together somewhat of a story between now and WrestleMania. You've got that would have been three Raws, right? If my math is correct, would have been Raw on the 22nd, 29th, and Raw on the 5th. That's 9 hours of programming. 9. You could have put together some sort of story in 9 hours to make Rhea Ripley the number 1 contender. You neuter the Royal Rumble because you don't have to win the Rumble to get a title shot. You just show up and you point to a fucking sign. It is terrible. Rhea Ripley, if you don't now, the WWE is like really good at video packages and telling backstories and shit like that. So if you don't watch NXT gets, keep me honest here, Joe, 600,000 views for argument's sake, 600, 650. 1.8 or so million watch Raw. So that's 1.2 million that do not know who Rhea Ripley is, but she fucking walks out, challenges Asuka for a match. Terrible. That's terrible. I understand it. It's not even last minute. You have 3 weeks. Make a story that people care about.
Okay, here's my counter argument for that. 2 things, I guess I'll say. One is they have been airing vignettes of Rhea Ripley saying that she's coming to Raw for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So at least they've made an attempt to tell people who she is, maybe show some highlights from NXT. Again, it may not translate fully, so I agree with that because all the NXT fans don't watch Raw as you noted based off the viewership. So I think they at least introduced her to a certain extent. It wasn't like she just showed up out of thin air. The second thing I'll say is, for that match in particular, I kind of have to give them a little bit of a pass because their original plan was Lacey Evans and Charlotte, and that had been building for several months. That was their plan. And because of circumstances, more or less beyond their control in terms of the booking committee or writers, they had to change it. So I think they were going to do Lacey and Charlotte. Then I think they were going to do Asuka and Charlotte. And now they're going to do Asuka and Rhea Ripley because Lacey and Charlotte apparently are going to be off WrestleMania. Now, as far as the Rumble is concerned, I think that the problem is that, and it's been this way ever since they have every time they have two sets of championships, it's always difficult because, back in the day when there was one WWE title, you win the Rumble, you get a shot at the title. That's it. Now, and even with the last brand split, when they have two world championships, now you have two women's championships, you can have the Rumble winner challenge for one of them. And then for the other one, they got to come up with something else. So, whatever that is, have a fatal 4-way, do a gauntlet match, do a battle royal, whatever. They have to come up with some sort of way to get the other challenger in place. So, in this case, for Rhea Ripley, I don't think they really, they just introduced her and they figured this is probably the best match we can deliver based off of the roster that we have for Raw. They had a storyline built in for Charlotte and Lacey that had to go out the window. So this is what they came up with. And maybe they'll develop something in the next 2 or 3 more Raws. I don't know that they had before WrestleMania, but I guess they just wanted to announce a match because they had tickets going on sale either earlier this week or last week that they probably wanted people to see, hey, these are the matches you're going to get to see if you go on night 1. And these are the matches you're going to see if you go on night 2.
Yeah, I'm fine with the match. I think the match is going to be good. I think it's a fresh match. I'm yawning actually thinking about the segment. So let me just refresh your memory real quick. Last couple of matches for Rhea Ripley, lost the Royal Rumble. Last woman standing, Raquel Gonzalez beat Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley beat Dakota Kai. Toni Storm defeated Rhea Ripley. Team Candice LeRae defeated Team Rhea Ripley. And Io Shirai defeated Rhea Ripley. So she's 1-6 and 1-7 the last 7 matches. I get it. Wins and losses don't count. I understand that. We're not watching college football or some shit like that. But at the end of the day, you're devaluing the title. Like the same way you just gave Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez the tag team titles in NXT, you're devaluing the belt. Nobody's going to give a shit. And that's my problem. I have no problem with the match. I have a problem with the lack of her earning a match. That's all. It's my old school. Bill Watts would be pissed.
I think that they view it as when you change brands, so whether it's NXT to Raw or SmackDown, or if you just go back and forth between Raw and SmackDown, they almost view it as you're leaving a territory. So I think that's what happens with in this case with Ripley. She did some jobs on her way out of NXT and put over folks like Raquel Gonzalez, and then comes to the main roster after some time off and gets a little bit more of a fresh start. And they see her as maybe a name, and she hasn't wrestled in a couple of months, and people know, well, she's on NXT, she's a star from down there. I think that's how they view it, because they job people out before they move from show to show, and then when they come up on a new show, it's like a fresh start for them. So people like us who watch all the shows, we see that, and we see that she's lost a few, and it's kind of like, all right, maybe she's coming in cold, but in their minds, it's it's different.
I think it's a little weird because they expect their fans to know who Rhea Ripley is from NXT, because clearly they're bringing her up and making her a big deal, but they're not expecting their fans to remember that she lost a shit ton on her way out, just getting a title shot. I just want titles to win more. I just want titles to mean more, I should say. What else sucks? Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon. You said to me like a week ago, you're like, dude, did you see that Shane McMahon segment? And I was like, no, why would I watch that Shane McMahon segment? And you sent it to me. Joe, did it not seem like he was intoxicated or possibly on something during that segment?
Yeah, it was a very odd promo that he cut a couple of weeks ago when he was essentially at the end of it called Braun stupid. I think Shane's just not a good actor, in terms of delivering his lines. I'm not sure what that promo was supposed to be, but it sucked. And
whatever it's supposed to be, it wasn't.
They could have done a very different or basic approach to have them having a match, which is like, maybe Shane gives Braun an opportunity at the title against Lashley, and then Shane costs him the title shot, or something like that, and then they end up having a match at WrestleMania. Instead, they're going with Yeah, instead they're going with the Shane is calling Braun dumb and keeps trying to avoid a match with him by feigning injuries or whatever it may be. And they're going to wrestle WrestleMania. So I'm sure the match is going to be one of those Shane McMahon takes a bunch of crazy bump matches. So we'll see. But yeah, that storyline is not good. There's 2 storylines on Raw that I don't like. That's one of them. So I don't have any. The match itself, I'm sure will be whatever, but I don't have any interest based off the storyline that they currently have going.
The second one, Johnny Drip Drip.
No, the second one is the Fiend and Randy Orton, which I feel like is a little bit too over the top for me with some of these things. I know people are comparing it to the Papa Shango storyline, which I think people have a soft spot for from when we were kids. So I get that, but I find that there's a little too much Alexa Bliss for my liking in this, and they kept the Fiend out for a long time. I think maybe it would have meant more. I would have been interested to see what the crowd reaction was like if there were fans when the Fiend finally returned after several months of being burned to a crisp.
Yeah, you could have had like Alexa say he's coming and challenge Randy to the match, and Randy's like, I murdered him, he's dead, and then him surprise pop up and have the match, right? That would have made more sense. Or
Yeah,
I mean, the fucking puppets could have came down to the ring and they could have done a little. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if they're gonna do one of those Firefly Funhouse matches or if they're gonna do something different. But
swamp match.
He is burned to a crisp, so I'm not sure if there's any like reconstructive surgery that he can have before WrestleMania.
I think he's the Toxic Avenger now. That's what he looks like to me.
Okay, no, that's fine. So so that I'm not really a fan of. I think Orton's been trying to carry it on his own for a few months, and that's not easy. That's not fun. I think there was one segment on Raw where he was cutting a promo on himself. He was watching himself cut a promo.
I did see that. Yeah.
I can't. I'm not. It's too long for me. It's just too long. Bad. Too much.
Way too much. Way too much Dina. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I hope BK is not listening because he said you're not allowed to talk bad about Alexa Bliss. So I'm upset on that one. The other thing that's a little weird to me is Bobby Lashley is like reaming out everybody in his group now. He's like, what's the WWE's fascination with that? Like Ali led Retribution, talked down to all his guys. Seth Rollins led whatever they were, like talk down to all his people. Like that's their thing. Like they have to be like an evil dictator, and then people hate them and turn the guys underneath him babyface. So I would say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it was never working, don't use it. Is that fair to say? I have no interest in like why break up or even tease breakup for what's the group that the
Hurt Business?
I was gonna say the Beatdown. What was the Beatdown? Wasn't it that
the Beatdown Clan?
BDC, yeah. I love the Hurt Business. They're great. Why even tease a breakup? Just have them be a strong force. Have them be the Undisputed Era on Monday Night Raw. That being said, Lashley versus Drew. I mean, did we just get that a couple of months ago and WWE wants everybody to forget about it? Yes, I did forget about it, but that's going to be your do you think that's going to main event night one?
I think it should. I mean, they've been, I mean, like you said, the buildup has been a little bit shorter because Lashley just won the title 3 or 4 weeks ago. And they did wrestle each other. I think it was actually Drew's first pay-per-view title defense after he won the belt at WrestleMania last year. But, that's happened in years past. I remember, one of my favorite main events, not in terms of quality, but was, Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14. People forget they wrestled the King of the Ring 97, maybe 7 or 8 months before that. So, I mean, these things happen, but I think, I hope it main events night one. I think Drew deserves to have a moment like that, where, especially given all the work he's put in over the last year. He went through a situation where he couldn't be on TV for a couple of weeks due to COVID. He's basically carried Raw for a full year. Yep. And he's, if he's going to win the title at WrestleMania, it should be in the main event in front of a live crowd on night one. So I hope that he gets the opportunity to do that.
30,000 people, right? Is that what I'm hearing? 25,000 people, I think, each night, or in both nights combined. I'm not sure.
I think it's like 25,000 each night. And that I think is in part why all of a sudden, like on Monday, they were like, hey, we're going to announce 5 matches for WrestleMania so you can see what's on what night. And they're trying to seem like they're just splitting up, like they split up the world titles, they split up the women's titles. They put Miz and Bad Bunny on one show. And
What? I feel like you keep bringing that up to troll me. Like you keep bringing up Miz and Bad Bunny.
it's on the card. I mean, I can't.
It's
There's no
not
trolling here. It's just this is what's on the card. Like I can't. We named 6 matches that are official according to Wikipedia. There's another 3 that I threw out there at you that I think are likely. That'll be about nine matches that we can at least come up with, and then we'll see what the rest of it looks like. Again, I don't know what they're going to do with the U.S. title and Riddle, what they're going to do with Big E and the Intercontinental title, the SmackDown tag titles. So I think those things will probably be in the mix.
The women's tag title. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the women's tag titles will probably be up for grabs as well, I assume. So, I'm sure they'll put things on the card, especially like you said, if they're going to do 4.5 to 5 hours each night, you're going to need to probably almost have 9 matches each show. So it's going to be close.
It's going to be brutal. I mean, with the amount of titles they have, they could just have both nights have only title matches and still probably be able to fill the amount of wrestling on the card. What do you think? How's our buddy Duke doing? He's making an appearance.
He's chewing up on a knee bone and apparently his mom's slippers. And
slippers are replaceable. I mean, that's what. Wait, oh, you froze. Damn.
It's okay. It's all good.
I guess that's really at least WrestleMania is starting to take shape coincidentally as soon as tickets go on sale. Is that like what lights the fire under the bookers? They're like, oh, we gotta, tickets are going on sale. We got to put together a thing. So, Hunter's here, dude. It's like a full on. It's a dog party. It's great. So now with the news this week, Andrade has gotten his release from the WWE.
Yes.
Rumors are swirling. Rumors say Charlotte said she was going to walk and even got Ric Flair involved. I don't know what's true and what's not true, but immediately after that, she was conveniently replaced or taken out of the WrestleMania poster. And people are like, oh, it's because she said she tested positive for COVID. I don't think they would. If you test positive for COVID, they're going to go through the trouble of removing of you from the poster. I think there's a lot more than meets the eye here. But the most interesting thing is he does not have a no-compete clause, Joe. He's like the only guy that's been released to the WWE that got his release that doesn't have a no-compete clause. So where does Andrade Cien Almas La Sombra? Where does he go?
I think if I was guessing or predicting right now, I would say he would go to CMLL or some company in Mexico. I think that's where he worked before. And, there is a connection with him and Naito for, LIJ and, the different factions that they have now in Mexico, Japan, and I guess in Ring of Honor. So I think that if I was guessing, it would be some combination of those two. I of course he could go to AEW, but to me, I don't know if he's a guy that you bring in and makes a big splash, especially if you just brought in guys like Big Show and Christian to the show in AEW. So I don't know. I think if I was him, that's what I would do. And maybe like a little bit more of a name for himself in those countries where he's known in Mexico. He has a connection to Japan. And then maybe eventually one day he can get back to, American television and AEW if they have interest in him. I don't know. But that would be my thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like as much, I wouldn't hate if he went to AEW, but AEW I don't think needs him right now. And what's he doing? What's the big guy doing?
He's okay. He's fishing for things to chew on. So we're just
you're not paying attention to him. Is what's happening. I think could he go to AEW? Sure. Would he be a great addition? Of course, he's going to be a great addition anywhere he goes. But I feel like AEW is pretty stacked with talent right now, and they don't need it. But if he debuts tonight, am I going to mark out on my watching Dynamite? Of course I am. So it's possible. I know they're going to be adding that extra hour of TV each week on TNT. So if you want to add more stars, fine. And what I do like about AEW is that we don't see the same stars every week. So it could be nice to get him in in that influx. But I am with you. I think the CMLL to New Japan crossover is really where the money is. Dude, sign me up for a Naito and Los Sombra feud, right? Like that would be. Then you could have the factions because Naito's kind of he doesn't have a lot to do right now. You bring Andrade in and you have him face off with Naito. Immediately, that's main event worthy stuff. He's in the prime of his career. He can be a main eventer. He can be a guy you build the company around. And also, the Trinidad is out there as well. You bring them back together. The sky's the limit, but good for Andrade to get that release that he deserved because him, like Keith Lee, like Aleister Black, they're sitting in catering every fucking night. They're watching these shows. They're not being used. Let them.
Just let it happen.
Dude, that is so good.
Just let it happen.
Duke, Big Duke. Let these guys work somewhere. They want to work somewhere. They don't want to just sit and watch. They're in the prime of their career right now. You're not doing anything for them by not letting them wrestle somewhere else. If you're not going to use them, let them go somewhere where they're appreciated.
I agree. I mean, yeah, some of these guys, I'm glad that he seemingly will have the ability to work somewhere else and not have to worry about a non-compete clause. I think that's good. I hate, when these guys have to sit home for, 8 or 9 months or whatever it is.
Look at Brody Lee.
3 months, I guess, 90 days, right? Is usually what it is. So yeah, I mean, I think that's good for him. And I'm sure he'll get an opportunity somewhere because he's a very good wrestler. And I've seen or read about stuff that he's done in Mexico previous, and he did great in NXT. I just think, they gave him a shot on Raw and Vince got tired of him and he wound up, not really having much of a spot. So
Vince got tired of him because they gave him shit to work with. He what they gave him was terrible. I mean, the faction was cool, but it just, I feel bad for a guy like that because you bust your ass in NXT. Just think if you brought over those NXT guys, maybe that dedicated NXT fan base that does not watch Monday Night Raw, because there's a ton of them. I'm one of them. Maybe we would, and I think that's the signal to wrap it up, fellas. Because when Duke lets us know when it's time, it's time. So we'll be watching. We have New Japan Dominion coming up next week, I believe, right? Genesis. I'm sorry.
I think it's Genesis. Yeah. There's a Ring of Honor pay-per-view this weekend.
There's a Ring of Honor
19th anniversary pay-per-view. Yes.
Which nice Briscoe Brothers shirt. I will not be watching it live, of course, because I'm going to be away. So I'm going to stay away from the internets and all the spoilers and watching it live on Saturday. We had NWA return last week, so it's a good week for professional wrestling. And Joe, maybe you want to get on the Twitter machine, and you could tweet if you're going to be watching the Ring of Honor show, which we are because, we have the Honor Club. So if you're going to be watching the Ring of Honor show, let us know what you're excited about. We're excited about it too. And we're, like I said, on that road to WrestleMania. Mania week is in 2 weeks, which is a great week for not only WWE, but all of wrestling, independent wrestling, Fight TV, Game Changer Wrestling, The Collective. Such great time. I really appreciate that. That's it for another edition of the All Night Long Wrestling Podcast. We are your hosts. He's got all four of them. He's the Stallion. I'm the Enforcer. And we're tapping out.
Best friends.